Are you the quantum mechanics?
Yes, we are the quantum mechanics.
Also known as the justified ancients of woo-woo.
If you're interested in the paranormal and the high strangeness, we're the podcast for you.
Whether you're a believer, a doubter, or somewhere in between.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Peter.
And we are the Quantum Mechanics.
Detective.
How you doing? I'm Aaron Dross. I call the Bureau. They said that you two have experience with these spooky cases.
Well, Ben, if you can't get Mulder and Scully to look into the spooky cases, then I guess we're the next best thing, right?
I mean, which one do you want to be?
I don't know. It's a really good question.
I'd always go to...
Well, that'd be really interesting to see what people think which one we would be. Yeah.
I don't think I've got the hair to be Scully.
Yeah, all right, I'll be Scully. Now, I chose that clip as it relates to what we're going to talk about in today's episode. I want to talk about what happens when police officers, in this one, British police, have encounters with UFOs.
Nice.
But before we get into that, we've got a new Patreon, right?
Yes, Megan Noel, thank you so much for joining us all the way, I think, from Canada. I say I think because sometimes it's very difficult to tell from the dashboard you get from Patreon, but I think from Canada. If I've got that wrong, I'm so sorry. But Megan, thank you so much for joining us. It means an awful lot.
Yes, you join our growing band of Patreons who get the episode a week early, get access to our exclusive episode, Ben and Peter's Extra Scoop, Discord server, lots of chat going on there, lots of posting on Patreon. But more importantly, you help support us and keep the podcast going. So thank you all who have joined. We really appreciate it.
Patreon.com/TQM pod.
Yes, definitely.
And I must say, Peter, you are marching through the end of a cold.
I am. I might be sounding a bit coldy, so I hope it's not too off-putting for anyone listening. But is it giving me a kind of deeper kind of, I don't know, almost Radio 2 late night vibe to me, maybe.
Yeah. We'll do a golden hour, then people can phone in with their love dedications.
Yeah. Well, I've been reading a fascinating book recently. It's published by Inspector Roy Teague, and it's titled Close Encounters of the Police Kind. What's unique about this book, Ben, is who's written it. As you can probably guess by the author's name, Inspector Roy Teague is a serving police officer. And that not only gives him credibility as a writer looking into police sightings of UFOs, but it also gave him, this is the important bit, access to talk to current and former police officers about their encounters with UAPs, many of whom have remained silent for years.
There's been a probing, Lewis.
So there's been a probing. Now, we've mentioned on the podcast before why police witness testimony comes with, I guess, added credibility, don't we? I mean, it's kind of what you'd think. They're trained observers. I mean, they are human, but they are trained observers. They're used to dealing with unusual and stressful situations. They need to remain calm if they can. And they're trained to assess situations and record observations, details and facts. So that kind of makes them good witnesses just on their own, right? And
importantly, they have credibility to lose.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next point. I mean, we do say that often on the podcast. What have people got to gain? And with reporting these encounters, and as you'll see when we go through the stories, most of these people, if not all of them, have nothing to gain but a lot to lose, which is why they rarely report these encounters at all. And there's a case coming up towards the end where, we were so close to video evidence, but this got in the way, this idea of not being believed and ridiculed. So we'll come on to that. Now, given all that, it is incredible the access the author has gained to the police officers involved in the sightings. As you can appreciate, Ben, many of them have only talked if they remained anonymous, and I think some, their names have been changed for obvious reasons, especially the serving police officers. Now, in the book, the encounters, and I've got to say, there are hundreds of them, the author explores them in date order. Because there's so many of them, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to be jumping around in terms of timelines because I was looking for themes or similarities between cases and the multiple stories and trying to find ones that are not the typical cases that we would normally cover, though there are plenty of them in there. Before we get into the stories, there was a great quote the author uses in the introduction to the book by astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. I've not heard this quote from him, but it's a brilliant one. He said, "Saying there are no aliens is like scooping a cup of water out of the ocean and saying there are no fish." What a great
that
quote.
is a really nice way of putting it, yes.
As you would imagine, Ben, most of the cases involve the types of craft that we've reported on the podcast many times before. You know, the classic saucer shape, the cigar, the triangle, and lots of those ones that we've had were examples of bigger craft being followed by smaller lights or orbs. Hundreds of cases of those. Given there are many cases like that, I've gone for the more unusual and different cases. And I was fascinated by a number of them that were reports of unusual craft we don't normally hear about. So let's start with that, shall we?
Absolutely. I mean, this is also quite relevant because we're about a year now since the unidentified drone flap.
Yes.
Where people were reporting all kinds of weird shaped things. I think those were less reported, but the things that were pretending to be aircraft but then changed. There was some that were sort of masquerading as a helicopter and then became a jet plane and then became an orb.
Well, we've got some of those coming up now, and the great thing about it is a lot of them are pre-drones, really, and certainly, even pre-laser. So let's start with the case of PC Harold Gallimore, an encounter he had in Stoke-on-Trent in the late 1960s. He and another officer were on at a petrol station filling up their squad car. PC Gallimore picks up the story. It was 1968, maybe 1967, I'm not sure about the month. It was about 7:15 a.m. and still dark. I was at Hanley Police Station, Stoke-on-Trent. I was filling my petrol car with fuel. I love this. Unfortunately, my colleague didn't witness what I was about to see as he was dozing.
Of course he was.
It was the end of a shift. He said, "I was looking northwest when I saw an object approximately 500 foot up in the sky about half a mile away from me. It was rectangular in shape and measured about 30 feet by 15 feet. So that's roughly 9 metres by 5 metres. It was glowing white and skimmering just above the skyline, travelling at about 20 miles per hour in utter silence as if in a vacuum. I watched it cross in front of me in an easterly direction. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This is the really interesting bit. The object then suddenly changed from glowing white to fiery red, reduced in size to 15 metres by 15 metres to form a cube. It changed direction and then flew off northwards."
Is that changing the thing that I find the most curious?
Bizarre that, isn't it?
It's
This
really
is
bizarre.
1960s, remember?
Yeah.
He said, "I watched the object until it eventually was out of my sight and lost to me." Now, what the officer saw was also corroborated by 2 members of the public. On returning to the station, he was told to write up the report but not to talk to the press. And until speaking to the author of this book 57 years after the event, he'd not talked about it to anyone for fear of hurting his career. This is the first time he'd talked about the experience.
Right, yeah.
Even though he had backup witnesses and, I think he was saying the report was just, he said, "I don't know what happened to the report, just got buried, I think."
Yeah.
From a UAP that transforms into a cube, which I loved, it was making me think of the ball.
Yes.
We move on to PC David Flanagan, who had 3 UFO encounters, 2 while serving as an officer and the 3rd after he retired. PC Flanagan says of his encounters, a point we've heard before. He said, "Over the years, I've often wondered why I've been a witness to 3 incredible sightings, while most people have had none. Maybe they chose to show themselves to us individually for whatever reason. Maybe some of us are just more susceptible and open-minded to the possibility that, quote-unquote, they exist, and as such, they allow certain individuals to see them." He says, "I wish I knew, but I don't have the answers." So his first encounter was in 1968, and it is a really unusual one, Ben. "I was on duty with a colleague," he recalls. "We were on a night shift on mobile patrol in a marked police car. It was around 2 a.m. My colleague and I needed a break, so we decided to park up and relax for a little while. We drove to the car park on Oxford Street in Tynemouth, just off the A193. We parked facing out towards the area where the Tyne River exits into the North Sea. The night was calm, the weather was clear and visibility was good. You could see right out to sea. We were just sat talking, chatting away, when we noticed something unusual out to sea underneath the surface of the water. It was an incredible bright white glow. It wasn't pulsating, it was just a solid glow that remained the same intensity. I will repeat that it was underneath the water, as I want to make that abundantly clear. The glowing light was well before the exit of the harbour, which is in between Tynemouth Lighthouse and South Shields Lighthouse. We watched the underwater glow for around 5 minutes. Then, without warning, the glow emerged from the water, revealing itself to be some sort of glowing spherical object, which then shot directly up into the sky at impossible speed. Within seconds, it was up into the heavens and gone. One thing I recall specifically is that as the glow emerged, it created hardly any ripples, if any at all, which makes no sense. My guess would be it was the size of a small car.
So I guess that's a USO, in a way.
Yeah, which I love.
Yeah, and we've had more reports of that. I mean, since we've had all of the things, the UFO reports and videos coming out of the US government, out of the Pentagon, we've seen a lot more things going transmedia, going in and out of the water. But I think, when I first became interested in UFOs in the late 80s, I had never read about that at all. It seemed like it was a fairly rare observation that was commonly reported, if you see where I'm coming from.
What a thing to see, though, coming out of the water. And
Phew.
Well, P.C. Flanagan's second encounter came while on patrol with another officer in 1973. What he describes as an enormous craft followed their police car, matching their speed. He said the heat from the craft was so intense it was uncomfortable inside the car. That's incredible, isn't it? It was from the reading. It was changing. They were slowing up and speeding up to see whether it would kind of interact with them, and it just kept following them at the same speed that they were doing.
But it was actually heating the interior of the car
because the light was so bright and hot. Yeah,
that's again very close encounters of the third kind.
Very
extremely worrying if you're in there, because I suppose my first instinct would be, is this radiation? Is this actually hurting me?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the craft was seen by other officers on patrol and members of the public. This is interesting. 6 a.m. the next morning, he had a visit from 2 men who came to his home. One in an RAF uniform, another in civilian clothing, who did not speak during the whole encounter.
It's because he's an alien and couldn't.
He was taken to a nearby airbase and questioned for a number of hours.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, had he told anybody about what I suppose a lot of people had seen it.
Yeah, and he'd reported it back to the station.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay.
Then his third one, this one. Then in 1981, after retiring from the force, while driving home with his family, they saw another UAP. This one he described as being like an old airship. He said as he was driving, he noticed all his family members had fallen asleep, and he himself was struggling to keep his eyes open, and he pulled into a lay-by. The next thing he remembers is arriving home 2.5 hours later than they were expected to arrive home.
Wow, okay, that's so the missing time.
Yeah, classic, right?
Yeah, I suppose it doesn't say whether he was ever put under hypnosis to work out what had happened.
No.
I think I might be too frightened, but to me, that feels more like a screen memory, the large airship type of thing.
Yeah, I thought that.
And everybody struggling to stay asleep, to stay awake or being asleep, that again smacks of being taken off somewhere. Or, a report that would suggest that. I'm not saying that is exactly what happens, that is what people report. But, okay, really interesting.
So he's had 3 experiences, one in the late 60s, one in the early 70s, and then one in the early 80s, all very different.
It would be hard if I was him not to feel like something was looking back
targeting
at
him.
me.
Yeah, I agree. Well, continuing our exploration of strange UFOs, Ben, do you want to hear about one that looked like a flying hotel?
No, move on. Yes, of course I want to know what that's a flying hotel.
This is the case of Special Inspector John Clayton, who, when interviewed by the author in 2025, was aged 82. He talked about having multiple experiences of the paranormal, including a near-death experience, premonitions, and he also did some dabbling with remote viewing, apparently, which he was quite good at. So a bit of a character. But it's his UFO experience in October of 1978 we're going to talk about. He was driving to work, heading to Burton-on-Trent police station around 8 p.m. They go into great detail about his Jaguar. I think he was very proud of it.
Of course, I had the optional extra pack on there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which meant the seats were leather rather than the standard velour.
Yes, exactly. Full electric windows. It was lovely. He started to hear what he described as a whirring noise. It was an old Jaguar. He did think it was a problem with the car, so he stopped in a lay-by just outside the brilliantly named Ben. He stopped in a lay-by outside Conker's Knob. Sorry, I don't want to be a child, but what a great name for a place.
Of course it is.
They've got lots of conker trees there, apparently. That's where it got its name from. I don't know where the knob bit comes in.
Well, there was a bloke there who had knob like a conker.
Yeah. When he shut off the car, he realised the noise was coming from above his head. I looked around and then upwards, he says. That's when I saw it. He said, I'll do my best to describe it as it is not your typical UFO-type sighting, and I want to paint as good a picture in the minds of others as possible. It was about 200 metres away, roughly 200 feet above the road and above the trees. What I can only describe as a flying hotel, roughly 5 stories high.
Wow.
Although the craft was black in colour, it was illuminated because there appeared to be windows going across each of its 5 floors. They were all lit up brightly, which enabled me to clearly discern the size and shape of the craft. I would estimate it to be around 250 to 300 feet in length, so that's 90 metres, so big. He said it was less craft, more cruise ship. It was an extraordinary sight. The front of it began to slope down until about 3/4 of the way down it went back underneath itself. You could liken the shape to a piece of cheese. I saw the rear of the craft too, which again had windows in it, albeit a smaller amount as its breadth wasn't as long as its length. I just stood there in absolute shock and awe as it slowly flew from the west to east across the top of Burton Road towards Swadlincote. I would estimate its speed at about 5 to 10 miles an hour, so pretty slow moving. That really reminds me of Close Encounters.
Yeah, me too. I mean, the giant ship that comes down at the end.
Yeah, he said it certainly wasn't in any hurry. He said the weather was cool and clear with only a little wind. I had an excellent and unobstructed view of this craft. Although it was dark country lane, the night sky was light and the craft was easy to distinguish as it was silhouetted against the light from Burton Town, which was located just a few miles away. So he then jumped in his car to get ahead of the craft, and he went on a kind of hilly location just so he could go above it and hope to get another look of it, which I thought was a smart thing to do. He then says the craft was coming in my direction, heading as before towards Swadlincote. It had clearly maintained its trajectory and course, he says. I hid behind a hedge as it passed over Cadwell Road about 50 or so metres in front of me. Short time after the craft crossed the road, it angled off to the right slowly. This is the mad bit. Then about 30 seconds later,
that's the mad bit.
without any warning and from a standing start, it took off at around 500 to 600 miles an hour towards the A444 and Leicester. The craft was gone from my view in seconds. I just stood there for a moment, taking it all in.
That's
incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to see that.
I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, I can see why I don't know what hiding behind a hedge is going to do, but I would find that absolutely terrifying in the sky.
I mean, I've not heard anything like that before.
No.
Like a floating hotel.
No. And the imposition of size, I think, like this time of year, I mean, just compare it, this time of year, there's a lot of air shows on, and on our local Facebook pages, pretty much every other day there is somebody going, what on earth was that just flew over? It was enormous. And somebody will go, it was a bomber or this or whatever it was.
Or something.
Yeah.
Lancaster bomber.
And something like that, I think, would leave you, I suppose, terrified and in awe.
Yeah. It really reminded me of something you might see on an episode of Doctor Who. The whole thing, right? He's in his old Jag. It's what was, the kind of the year it was. And there's this floating hotel, basically, up in the skies. Brilliant. Well, maybe this next case has a similar vibe. This one I felt had a kind of steampunk style to it. It's the case of Chief Inspector James Willis. The year 1987. You're going to like this location as well, Ben. It's in Abingdon.
Oh.
It's near us. So the Chief Inspector agreed to have his real name used in the book as he was coming up to retirement, which is good. But the incident happened to him when he was a child. So he was 9. So he wasn't a 9-year-old police officer. He was just a kid. He said it's the only time he's seen a UFO, although some details will inevitably have faded from my memory, he says. The sighting itself stuck with me and sparked a lifetime's interest in unexplained phenomena. At the time of the encounter, he was sitting in the back of his grandparents' car, travelling between their house in Bridwelcombe, Sotwell, Oxfordshire and Abingdon. It was completely dark and the sky was clear. I'm assuming this would have been late evening, but what month or exact year it was, I have no idea. We were in a very rural area with no housing or industry. It was just farmland. There was no artificial lighting and no other traffic. I was looking out the offside window towards the direction that I have since discovered would have been roughly around Little Whittingham area. Suddenly a blue object shaped like an isosceles triangle appeared in the sky. This bit's the weird bit. He said there must have been a stick emerging from the tip of the triangle, although I couldn't see it, as at approximately the same distance from the tip as the length of the triangle, there was a small red circular object. The triangle was rotating slowly around the red ball. So if you picture that, it's a small red ball, and the bigger craft is kind of just going around it. He said, imagine you have a heavy object tied to a piece of string, and you are swinging it slowly around your head as you walk forward. That is what the motion was like. The blue triangle swung in a circular motion around the red object, and the whole contraption moved slowly in a straight line across the sky. My younger brother was in the car with me, and he saw it as well. My grandfather was driving and wouldn't take his eye off the road. My grandmother was in the front passenger seat, and I was unable to see it due to the angles. My brother and I watched the object as it moved at a leisurely pace across the sky for perhaps 10 seconds or so. And then it just disappeared, quite literally, just disappeared.
So the shape is interesting because that reminds me immediately of the Todd Martin incident.
Right, okay.
Where the craft was described as pyramid shape, but there were also, if I recall, orbs flying, not necessarily in the same formation as you've just described, but around, what one would perhaps call a mothership. But
the idea that the bigger ship was travelling around the smaller ball was weird, though.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that is interesting is, because I do know that area well, it is very close to lots of military bases around there. Yeah. So there's Carterton and Fairford, all within a hop, skip and a jump from there. Carterton and Fairford both host the US fighter jets and perhaps nukes. So it's possible that there is some, it might be a misidentification of some friendly craft that is of terrestrial origin, but also in a previous job, there's a place called the Whitnam Clumps very near there, and you can see RAF Carterton from there. Right. And I went up there with somebody from MUFON and a film crew trying to capture some of the unusual craft that MUFON were having reported to them. And I will admit there were some strange things we saw in the sky, but none of which we could categorically say were alien. But he did say to me, I have to be very careful around here because of all the military activity, and there might be some things which we can't identify, but they aren't extraterrestrial.
Right.
But something of that shape, it doesn't feel like it's a flying platform that you would, really we need wings, don't we? So, yeah.
I mean, he does say that in the years since I've conducted my own research, spoken with people in various UFO communities, but I have been unable to find similar sightings, and what I saw bears no resemblance to any other of the classic UFO models.
No.
Which is true. Yeah, do you know what I mean about it? It was a bit steampunky, that one, I thought.
Yeah, it is a bit steampunky. And I think what is interesting is the kind of, what comes across in that story is almost the ambivalence of the two adults in the car.
Yeah.
That phenomenon that we've spoken about before, where you sort of look out the window, you see a UFO and go, oh, well, I'm just going to go to bed.
Yeah.
That sort of weird instilled nonchalance, which I think is peculiar with the phenomenon.
Yeah, that was like the one I had with my mum, just going, oh, yeah, that's weird. That was it. That's weird.
Yeah.
Well, we've got some good ones coming up now. It's not just the craft men that police officers see that can be weird, but the aerial phenomena around it can also be super strange. Like this case involving PC Steve Roberts, which happened in 1993. This incident is something I simply cannot explain away. The former officer, who served with both the Merseyside Police between 1982 and 89 and the Metropolitan Police between 1989 and 1998. He said, I only left due to an injury received on duty. And now, more than 25 years after leaving the force, I still miss it. It was the spring of 1993, and he was serving with the Met when he experienced this encounter. Sometime between March and April, I was based in the Kensington and Chelsea borough of London at the time, and I was off duty in company with another officer, PC David Jones. So just him and a fellow copper having a day out, basically, in London. Two of us were waiting at a bus stop outside the Victoria and Albert Museum to take us to the West End. It was around noon and a bright sunny day. The sky was clear, untroubled by clouds. That's when it called to PC Roberts. He said, I don't know why, but I felt compelled to look up into the sky. That's when I saw it. I can only describe it as a black hole or a tear in the sky in the shape and colour of a jet black ellipse.
Darker than dark.
Yep.
Yeah.
He said you could see no stars within it, and it didn't appear to be space. It was just blank nothingness. Within this black ellipse was a silver orb that was either spinning or rotating incredibly fast. Due to the shape of the blackness and the orb within it, the whole thing combined looked in essence like an eye up in the sky. Oh, that'd be weird.
That is peculiar.
Said it was absolutely bizarre. It's well worth me going into a little more detail about how the silver orb looked to me when it was moving, as it was really weird. The best way to describe it is to invite the reader to watch a clip of the horror film Jacob's Ladder starring Tim Robbins. There are several scenes within the film where the heads of some of the characters seem to rotate, flash and spin incredibly quickly, all at the same time. And that's what it was like, basically. He said, after a few minutes, we decided not to wait for the bus. Like, nobody else was looking at this. That's the weird thing of this story. Nobody else seemed to be able to see it, only him and his mate. After a few minutes, we decided not to wait for the bus and walk away as our unease began to grow. We wanted to put some distance between us and whatever this thing was. We began to walk down Brompton Road towards the West End. After a few minutes, it became obvious to me this thing was following us. I know how that sounds, but that is what happened. Within a few minutes, we got to a row of shops opposite Harrods and noticed a camera shop. I went into the store, produced my warrant card, identified myself as a police officer, and explained there was something strange up in the sky and requested they come outside and take a photograph of it. Remember, this was 1993 and cell phones weren't available to the public, so this course of action was my only option to capture this on film. The shop staff clearly didn't believe me and declined to assist me. We walked around 10 to 15 minutes, stopping every so often and attempting to point out the strange object in the sky to other members of the public. But no one we spoke would engage with us, he says. He said, I put this down to my out-of-town broad Liverpudlian accent, either putting off or frightening Londoners. But I wonder whether there's something else going on there, right? People just... I mean, he's in the middle of central London in midday, and he's seeing this thing. He said, eventually, after 15 minutes, we reached Kensington Gore, which was at the top of Sloane Street. This location was about a mile from where we had first noticed and tried to walk away from this thing, which was still above us and stayed with us. I was absolutely convinced then, as I am now, that whatever it was knew we were aware of it and had followed us. The bus then pulled up. We couldn't get it on it as quickly as enough. We just wanted to put some distance between the object and ourselves and hoped it wouldn't follow the bus. After a 15-minute bus ride, the two officers looked up again into the sky. I was so relieved to see that it was gone, says PC Roberts. From where we got off the bus to where the object was last seen in the sky was visible to us, and thus we know whatever it was had left the sky and gone elsewhere.
So there's this a level of high strangeness
Really weird,
around
that,
this.
isn't it?
I mean, that is very akin to what we talk about as the Oz effect, where everything goes silent and, you know, birds stop singing, you can't hear the sound of the trees moving. But people refusing to engage in a conversation about it, that's even more so what we were just saying about the nonchalance towards this phenomena.
But in a city like London...
No, that is particularly peculiar. I mean, there is always that idea of, you know, people won't talk to you because they think, you know, they're about to be scammed or something. But I think if you said, look, sorry, just going to stop you a minute. Can you see that in the sky?
Yeah, that big hole in the sky.
Yeah.
That black hole.
Yeah.
With an eye in it.
People would turn and they would go, gosh, yes, I can. Do you know what it is? You know, I think that is weird. And that blacker than black, that is something that keeps coming up again and again and again, not just with UFO encounters, but with, for example, shadow people encounters, where people say, you know, I did see a figure move across, for example, a field in the darkness because it was darker than dark, it was blacker than black. Yeah. I'm completely perplexed by that. Really, and an eye looking down, I mean, I presume it's not an eye. It's
he just said it kind of resembled it wasn't like an eye, it was just an orb within that blackness.
Representing the pupil.
So if you looked at it, it kind of had the appearance of an eye rather than it looked like an eye.
I mean, that's very Doctor Who in itself anyway.
Yeah, it's that. But again, that's a bit Doctor Who as well, because I quite like that Doctor Who. It always happens in big cities rather than on the, on a countryside lane with no one around. We were talking about that the other week, weren't we?
Yeah.
You know, almost there's a trickster element to that. But this is even another level kind of trickster, isn't it? Hey, this whole thing up in the sky that you two can see, but nobody else seems to. Really weird.
Yeah. And, I mean, there'll be all kinds of skeptical explanations about hallucinations, drug, medical instances, but I can't think of a medical instance where, you know, you're fine afterwards, but at the time you can see a massive hole in the sky.
Yeah, both of you. Yeah. Well, there is another incident in the book that follows a similar pattern. This one was 2 years later, on July the 10th, 1995. It involves PC Jonathan Lake from South Yorkshire Police, so this is in the north.
Good old Lakey.
I was on duty in full uniform in company with another constable. We were parked up at Windhill area of Mexborough, he says. I'm very sure of the date as the Rolling Stones had played at the Don Valley Stadium the previous evening. They were parked at a junction looking down Hurstgate, an extremely steep hill leading down to the Doncaster Road junction around a mile away. It was around 4 a.m. My partner and I were sitting there parked in a marked police car. The area at the time was experiencing a spike in burglaries. The car engine was turned off and we both had our windows open so we could hear anything untoward. In short, we wanted to catch ourselves some burglars. Instead, PC Lake suddenly became aware of something up above him in the sky, something he still cannot explain. I have no idea how long it had been there, he says. I can only describe what I saw as a hole in the night sky. I will elaborate further as best I can and would describe the whole as a black mass that appeared solid but with a large spheres of light around it. I know it was solid as I could see no stars through it, and they were everywhere else in the night sky. The odd thing was that although the spheres around the black mass were lights, they didn't illuminate the area or seem to give off any light. The object was above the car, but due to the distance above the car, which was about 200 metres, I could see it entirely. I would estimate its size to be that of a football pitch. Football pitch hole in the sky. It was a huge object. There was no obstructions in the sky between the object and us, and it was a very clear night. It made no sound, and it wasn't moving at all. It was just there, hovering, silent and unmoving. I almost couldn't believe or process what I was seeing. I just sat there and stared at it for about 10 seconds. When he tore his eyes away, it was to slowly look over at his colleague. He was sat there almost trying to push himself back into the back of the passenger seat while staring right at me. He was clearly afraid. I said to my colleague, "Are you okay?" To which, whilst continuing to stare at me, he replied, "Tell me you can see that." I asked, "What can you see, mate?" And my colleague then replied, "I don't know what it is." I then looked back up in the sky and it was gone and nothing was there. Well, we both quickly got out of the police car and looked up into the night sky, but again, nothing was there. Where the object had been moments before, there were now only stars. Whatever it was must have left the sky at incredible speed or be out of our view in such an extreme short a period, PC Lake says. Furthermore, it made no sound when doing this. The officer drove straight back to the police station and reported it to the sergeant, but found him quite indifferent about the matter. The sergeant told us to report the matter to the RAF. My colleague, whilst I was with him, did report that matter to the RAF. They asked us various questions, which we answered the best we could. After that, we never heard anything again about what we had seen. To this day, I cannot explain what I saw, but I can state the object was very real. A few months before his own sighting, PC Lake recalled another officer going out to some private land between Cadbury and Harlington due to a 999 call had been received that there was a flying saucer type craft had landed in a field. The farmer had contacted the police in an excitable state, reporting this. He said the officer in question attended the scene some 20 minutes later, but on his arrival at the farm, the farmer informed him that the officer that the craft had left. Naturally, due to what I had seen, this incident also stayed in my mind. The area of the farmer's sighting was only around a mile or two away from mine. I have often wondered if they have any connection.
Okay, so
another black hole.
Another black hole.
How weird is that?
It's funny because we don't often hear, again, cases like this. At the moment, we're in a particular sort of phase, I suppose, of orbs, we know tic-tacs, also sort of craft which are morphing, but very, very little about, a massive black hole. But maybe that's just because by the nature of it, they're less often reported.
Yeah. Well, we've got another hole in the sky coming up. This is our final case. It is... it's amazing and it's frustrating at the same time, and you'll hear why as we go on. So we're returning to London. It's July the 5th, 1997, and PC Paul Hammond, who was at the time an air observer with the Metropolitan Police Force helicopter unit, which I'm a bit obsessed with the helicopter ones, this is great. He said, "I was very experienced at my job and had been on the air support unit since 1980. I have attended the scene of thousands of incidents, providing much needed air support to my fellow police officers on the ground. I also experienced 2 separate helicopter crashes due to a rotor and engine failure." It's not very good luck, is it?
No.
"It's fair to say I have a lot of experience in all matters of aerial policing." He said, "I had an incredible encounter. It was Saturday, July the 5th, 1997. I recall it was around midnight and the sky was bright and clear. Weather was good and you could see for miles. There were 4 of us in the helicopter. They were the pilot, the air observer, the heli-telly, who operated the camera, and Warrant Officer First Class David Frampton. He was on attachment with the police for that evening, and Paul, who was the tactical air commander responsible for police radio communications and aerial photographer. So that's the guy who's telling the story. On each shift, apart from the pilot, for obvious reasons, we would swap roles and therefore seats in the helicopter, Paul says. WO1 David Frampton was with us as part of a police-army collaborative initiative that evening. We had been authorised to lift and deploy to the area of the South Bank over London. We were south of the Thames and near the MI6 building, hovering at around 1,000 feet. Pretty standard stuff. Our role was to monitor the dispersal of persons on the ground from a gay pride parade numbering in their thousands. We were there for public safety reasons. I love that. Such a police officer, wasn't it? Well, dispersal of persons on the ground from a gay pride parade numbered in their thousands.
I purchased 6 buns for the full intention of putting processed meat products inside them and serving with a savoury tomato relish.
I guess it's bad attention to detail, isn't it? He said this was to call... So their purpose was to call in ground units should any form of public order break out, disturbance. The pilot was forced to manoeuvre the helicopter to a different location in the air due to persons on the ground celebrating by shooting fireworks up into the sky, PC Hammond explains. The pilot slowly banked away, then levelled out again. And that's when we all saw it. I was sitting behind the pilot when it came into view. It was an object in the sky off our right beam, about 100 feet from us, stationary and at the same height as us. I can only describe it as looking similar to a solid grey paper dart on its side. It was about 35 to 40 foot in length, so that's about 12 metres. The object had no vapour trail, exhaust, windows or portholes and made no sound. I can state that it most definitely was not a balloon, blimp or some kind of remote controlled model. No one had those back in the late 1990s and we had absolutely no idea what this object was. And they're used to seeing stuff up in the sky, right? He said all aboard the helicopter knew that due to very strict visual flight rules, nothing whatsoever should have been in the sky and occupying this airspace. This is because central London is a target for terrorism due to the highly sensitive targets within it, such as the Houses of Parliament, Downing Street and Buckingham Palace, to name but a few, Paul says. The pilot got on the radio immediately to Heathrow Air Traffic Control and said something like, "We've traffic to our right, have you got anything up here?" Heathrow replied and said, "Nothing, you're on your own." In short, they could only see us on radar. Now this really got our attention because there was something there and we could all see it. The decision was taken to fly around the object, but we did so whilst permanently facing the object as a predator would circle its prey, says PC Hammonds. They weren't giving them the back of the helicopter to have a look at. He said our speed was around 60 to 70 knots. We didn't know what to make of this thing. We stopped and just looked at the object from the left side. We didn't know what the hell it was. I then looked at the object through the thermal camera screen. The cameras are controlled by the front observer. This camera is accurate to within 0.01 degrees. Whilst doing this, the rear of the object rose up and went into a 90-degree angle to the rest of its fuselage. As this happens, I saw the temperature of the rear part of the object that had risen had increased slightly in heat. What happens next, he still struggles to believe. As we were all watching the object, it shot forward at an insane speed. As it did so, it was like the sky unzipped. The object flew into it and the sky closed back up behind it. The craft had disappeared in an instant. It was gone. It is difficult to describe how it left our sight, but it was as described. I suspect it flew into some sort of porthole or wormhole. I would like to add, as I feel it's important, that I did not feel threatened by the object in any way during the incident, and I felt it meant us no harm. The encounter had not just been witnessed, but recorded.
Oh, what?
Oh, yeah. As you can imagine, the incident created quite the conversation in the helicopter between us all, and at the time, and on the journey back to Lippets Hill, Paul says. When we landed, we took the tape out of the helicopter that had recorded the incident and watched it in private without discussing the incident with anyone else. The footage showed the account I have just described here. A further decision took place as to what to do with the footage and who to tell. The end result was that we remained silent and recorded over the footage.
No.
Our rationale was that there was a genuine fear that at worst we would lose our jobs and at best our roles on the air support unit. None of us wanted that. So in short, and to my regret, we buried the incident and did our best to forget about it. Now, well over 20 years later, I wish we hadn't. But you must appreciate back then we were afraid for our careers, had mortgages to pay and families to support. This is why they did it as well. He said it's well worth mentioning that a fellow officer and friend of mine on another shift on the air support unit called William Humphrey Bishop had a UFO sighting while up in a force helicopter many years before in July 1979. He reported it, and a lot of other officers, because of this, made fun of him despite him being a great stand-up guy. He had a hard time from bosses who initially told him he would never fly again and grounded him. None of us wanted that or our career-damaging stigma associated with being a UFO police witness, and that's why they wiped the footage.
It makes me so angry. Makes me so angry.
That's terrible, isn't it?
It's not only is it just disappointing for those people concerned because it means it turns them into liars, basically, because they have to cover up what they saw. They then become afraid of telling not just their colleagues, but their friends and family for fear of it getting back and then that lie being revealed, even though they did it to protect themselves. And then on top of that, how on earth are we supposed to study this if the only source of truth, in massive inverted commas, is the Pentagon at the moment?
Yeah.
I think the more I look at that stuff, the more I am convinced that we're being fed a pup with that. But this, when you've got somebody with actual eyes on the craft, whatever it is, and it's over central London, and you're in a helicopter, and you've got 3 other witnesses, and you've got thermals as well.
Yeah. Well, the interesting bit, so yes, absolutely frustrating that footage was wiped over. However, absolutely amazing, the author of this book managed to also get the testimony of the person, the last witness mentioned, who was in the helicopter, David Frampton. So he managed to interview 2 of the people on that helicopter. So I'm going to go over the other account, very similar, but yeah, this at least tells you that there's 2 independent witnesses who weren't with each other when the interview was conducted by the author of the book. So collaborating witness David Frampton served in the army for 23 years. He was demobbed in October 1997. I was a warrant officer class 1 employed as a chief clerk's staff assistant at the Royal Military Police Training School located in Chichester, Sussex. Whilst on an attachment with the Met Police, so I mentioned there was an army guy there that day who was helping them out, so he wasn't part of their normal crew. So I think that's important as well. He said, I was witness to something I've never been able to explain. It was Saturday, July 5th, 1997, around midnight. I was in the company of Paul Hammond, who the previous account was from, and 2 other airborne in the Metropolitan Police helicopter. With the passage of time, I do not remember the names of the others. The weather was good and visibility excellent. I was on board as part of a police-army exercise. We were flying about 1,000 feet and we were over the South Bank area of London near the MI6 building. It was a beautiful night to witness the lights and sights of London. The reason for the flight was for public safety of the participants of the annual Gay Pride March. There was a massive crowd numbering in the thousands and we were observing them safely disperse. This is how I can be so precise about the date. We were operating at a heightened level of observation as earlier that evening fireworks had been launched as part of the march. Unfortunately, one of these projectiles, a large mortar-type device, had come uncomfortably close to our rotor disc. We were forced to veer off course. Shortly after this, I saw something behaving and flying in a manner I had not witnessed with any aircraft performed before. I was sitting behind the air observer and my attention was drawn to the object off our starboard side by PC Paul Hammond. The object was hovering level at their height and appeared to be quite close. Although I cannot definitely say how far away, as there was nothing to suggest its relative size, but I would guess about 50 yards away and about 30 to 50 feet long. I would describe it as a V-shaped dull silver grey dart on its side, a bit like the ones we made in school from a single piece of paper. I can also categorically say there was no exhaust fumes, vapour trails coming from the object, which just hung there silently. I did not observe any windows or hatches. It was not a meteorological balloon or something similar. There was obvious concern in the aircraft about this object, and the pilot called up Heathrow Airport and said something like, "We have traffic to our right. What have you got showing?" or similar words. Heathrow replied, "Nothing, you're on your own." This made my heart accelerate. This was because we had a situation where we could see something that radar could not. We were being told nothing was there, and yet we could see something up in the sky quite sizable. The pilot started to circle the object while keeping the nose of the helicopter in line facing it, David recalls. We completed a circle and the object was right in the front of us, horizontally to our flight path. Suddenly, the object changed shape, and on the side, dart shot off at incredible speed. It sort of withdrew to a pinpoint, and then there was a tiny flash around the object, and it completely disappeared. The shape change resembled an open umbrella without a carrying handle at the rear, yet the dart stayed the same. There was a lot of chat en route back to Lippert Hill, but I was really not included in it. So remember, he was not part of their team. He was just somebody else. On landing, I was asked to go to the crew room and remain there until the other crew members returned. So he was sitting in the crew room, they were in the other room looking at the footage and deciding to delete it, basically. I would like to further state that prior to joining the Army, I had undergone glider pilot training and had successfully passed my wings after flying solo. I have good knowledge of the principles of flight and maintain a keen interest in aviation. I can absolutely state that what I saw that night was not built by us.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fantastic, though, those two witnesses to this, separate. And, yeah, I think it's important. He wasn't part of their team, you know.
What they describe as well does sound like a gravity drive.
Yeah, really does, doesn't it?
Yeah. And, I mean, it's so unusual that it's over central London. I wonder whether there's any ground observers.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that, you know, that other one of the kind of black hole in the sky was over central London. Or whether that's... I mean, it amazes me that over central London. And again, I guess skeptics would argue, you know, oh, well, there's lots of things flying around over London, even in the 90s. But these are helicopter pilots for the police. They're used to being up there and they know what is up there and what isn't up there.
Yeah, of course.
And to have two people from that night come through and say, oh, it's such a shame they didn't keep the footage, right?
All I can think of is that time that my mum taped over Doctor Who with Songs of Praise, and just thinking, they took it back. What have you got? I've just thought I heard. But really, I'm staggered by that. I mean, that for me is...
What a case.
The pinnacle of everything you've described, because there's only really two explanations for that. You know, one is the otherworldly phenomena, you know, and whether they're aliens, whether it's us from the future, it's kind of a moot point when it comes to that. Or there's a piece of probably US tech, which for some reason is over central London teasing helicopter pilots. And I wouldn't put it past them, but it seems unlikely.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, what I'm going to do on the extra scoop... I got a bit obsessed. I mean, like I said, the book's got lots of cases in. There are some other ones that involve police helicopters. So that I'm going to go into those a little bit in the extra scoop as well. Because, again, it's that thing of, if we go with the line that police are trained observers, they're credible, they've got a lot to lose, they're trained to keep calm under pressure. But you could argue your average kind of Bobby on the beat doesn't necessarily know what's in the sky, but those helicopter police do, and that's why I think their cases are really interesting. So I've got another couple of those which I'm going to do in Ben and Peter's Extra Scoop, our Patreon exclusive.
All I can think of when you talk about these helicopter cases is Ernest Borgnine sat in the back directing Stringfellow Hawk.
Yeah.
Airwolf would have done something with that thing, wouldn't it?
Maybe it was Airwolf. I've also on the Extra Scoop, I've got a couple of cases as well that made me think of the miracle of the sun, which we'll go into as well, and I'll explain why.
Lovely.
So yes, we've got a lot going on there.
Well,
so yeah, it was an incredible book. Like I said, just picked a couple of cases. There are hundreds in there. So go and check it out. It's called Close Encounters of the Police Kind, written by Inspector Roy Teague. He sounds like a proper, TV inspector, doesn't he?
Well, that's what he said, yes. There's been a sighting, Lewis.
Call Inspector Roy Teague.
Yes, yeah. Well, like I said, all you really need to have a police detective or a senior police person is make their name sound like a double meaning, a touch of frost, Inspector Morse, those, he should be called, I don't know, Inspector Craft.
Yeah.
Maybe two on the nose.
Well, I think I might call this episode PCUAP.
Yeah, well, it could be, there's probably a TV series in this for you.
Yeah. P? What?
Right, let's get out of here.
Good.
Patreon.com/TQM pod. We'll be back next week. Hopefully we'll have restored health in both parties.
Yeah, good.
Thank you for all those lovely stories, and I'll see you in a few minutes on the other show.
Alrighty, see you later.
Take care, goodbye.
Are you the quantum mechanics?